Well, welcome back to Ethical Adulthood, the atlas of our lives. Today is season 3, episode 8, and we're looking at the great chain of being. Imagine you woke up this morning and someone could finally explain everything. Why stars move through the sky. Why kings are kings. Why rocks are rocks. Why you were born where you were. Why some people suffer, why others prosper. Imagine every single thing had its proper place, its rightful place. For nearly 1,000 years, many Europeans believed exactly that. Versions of this kind of map have appeared across civilizations. So let's look at this great chain of being. I'd like you to imagine a ladder. Top rung, God. Below God, angels. Below angels, humans. Below humans, animals. Below animals, plants. Below plants, minerals. Everything occupies exactly one rung. Nothing is random. Nothing is accidental. Everything belongs. Now let's zoom in on the human rung. I want you to imagine a smaller ladder within this area. So it might have looked something like this. At the top rung, king or queen. Then the nobility. Then the priests. Then the merchants. Then the peasants. Then servants. Nobody questioned the ladder because the ladder was reality. Now you can understand how come it was such a scandal to marry beneath your station. Downton Abbey, The Crown, Poldark, Bridgerton, many other television and movie shows illustrate the pain that this standard caused. This map is one of the most comforting maps, though, that I've ever seen. While I haven't ever adopted this particular map, I've used ones that contained nearly the same level of certainty for at least a few days in my life when I felt like I required some stability just to make it through a particularly tough week. When my dad died in 2000 and then my mother in 2019, both times I told myself some version of they're not really gone. I just can't see them anymore. I told myself that there's a natural order to things, and this was the manifestation of that natural order. Wait, that's actually true, isn't it? I don't know. I told myself they had moved on to a higher plane of existence and had not, in fact, lost the ground of reality, consciousness itself. Why is the desire to construct order so compelling to us? Well, it answers our existential questions. Who am I? Where do I belong? Why is there suffering? What's my purpose? Why shouldn't I rebel? What happens when we die? I cannot overestimate how psychologically comforting certainty is. I know this from years as a psychologist. Anxiety hates ambiguity. Depression hates a well of questions with no answer. Maps reduce a sense of being unmoored. Maps answer your questions. You can find this map in Dante's Divine Comedy. Now, he didn't invent it, but he dramatized it. And in doing so, he replaced arbitrary divine judgment with a perfectly ordered system of justice. Hell isn't random. Purgatory isn't random. Heaven isn't random. Everything is ordered. Everything has its place. Every soul is exactly where it belongs, according to the moral architecture of the universe. And it's kind of cool. I mean, morality becomes geography. You literally climb toward God or descend away from him. So this map has obvious strengths. We've already talked a little bit about them. The great chain of being gives people meaning and stability, a sense of purpose and belonging. Can't deny that it's kind of beautiful, and it gives order to understanding. I mean, chaos is terrifying. Life was difficult, very difficult. We can understand why these maps are born and why they work. So obviously the map has limitations. It can be used to justify oppression. If the king or the nobility or the clergy is above me, then rebellion becomes rebellion against God. Likewise, men over women, nobles over peasants, Europeans over everyone else, masters over slaves. This is where hierarchy becomes ideology. What's the ideology? That superiority, rank, and privilege are God's plan. Once people believed this hierarchy reflected God's own design, it became extraordinarily easy to use it to justify existing power structures. But I'm curious about something. There was a book called the Bible and a man named Jesus of Nazareth. And the teachings of this book and this teacher are ignored here. Someone who has metabolized Jesus' teachings does not do their best to justify superiority, privilege, or rank. When Cain asked God, "Am I my brother's keeper?" God, in my interpretation, basically said, "Well, yes." So I submit that whatever truth this map claimed to describe, it also told a profoundly comforting and politically useful lie. Discomfort was everywhere for the vast majority of human beings for thousands of years. Repair of the ruptures between classes was not possible if the structure were to be maintained. Power needed to be sanctified in order to operate with impunity. I mean, actions needed to be implemented without having to consider the state of the slaves, or the fate of the children, or the plight of women, or of the lowborn, quote unquote. Grief had to be handled swiftly because the work that had to be done to merely survive day to day, it was relentless. And the nobles and the clergy had to know their place, lest the king or queen need them to shut up while they ruled to get a job done. Everybody was asked to understand the assignment of their life by the time they were old enough to look around and see reality. This map, it asks, who are you? Ethical adulthood asks, who are you becoming? That's a radically different question. One is static, and one is developmental. One says, stay where you belong, and the other says, grow up. I don't believe that God, if there is a God, is so simple as to think up a ladder for a creation hierarchy and call it a day. I believe the universe's complexity is beyond my mind's ability to know its structures and functions. But I still understand why people wanted a knowable God, a knowable universe. Life is confusing, so we ache for order, and we ache to believe there's meaning. The great chain of being reminds us that human beings have always built maps to answer these questions. The danger begins when we mistake the map for permanent reality. As I stated earlier, hierarchy wasn't unique to Christianity or to Europeans. India had a caste system. Ancient China had the 4 occupations. Confucianism had ordered relationships. Ancient Greece had it. Plato and Aristotle were absolutists about natural place and purpose. And today, we have hierarchies everywhere. In the military, in government, in modern corporations. Humans keep building hierarchies. Certainty reduces discomfort, and maps reduce uncertainty, which is why we have to hold them, but lightly, if at all. So we close with the 3 questions I promised to address for each map. 1, what does this map help us to see? That we have a strong tendency to seek order in the world. We want to feel connected, seen, and as having a purpose. 2, what does it make it harder to see? That human beings are not necessarily fixed by birth, by place of birth, by gender, by class, by talent. Those limitations exist, but none of those things establishes a person's moral worth or social rank. We're seemingly built to evolve, to transcend the roles that we may have been assigned. Humans have agency. All of us, not just the ones assigned to make the maps. The ladder is a tool created by us for us, not a map of reality. And so there is no justification really for oppression in reality. 3, what happens when we mistake the map for reality? Well, oppression. We begin treating social arrangements as if they were eternal truths. Power becomes sacred. Questioning authority becomes questioning God. People stop asking, is this just? And instead they ask, is this my place? The result of this map was stabilizing. And stabilizing can be good if you want to build a civilization and construct pyramids and aqueducts. Stabilizing can be good if you want to build a country where the powerful want to keep being powerful forever. But it's terrible for human development, compassion, and mercy, equality for all, and fairness as a matter of course. The great chain of being reminds us that the human heart longs for order. Its danger is that we may begin confusing the order we've imagined with the order that actually exists. Thanks for listening in today. This is Ethical Adulthood. I'm Andrea Fiando, and I'll see you next time.